Yo.
Hello. Not much. Anything specific you want to talk about before we get into the main bulk of the episode?
Oh, we can talk about Kevin Smith.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Blanket in my lap. Help with acoustic. Maybe, I don't know. Hopefully. All right. Well, you ready?
Sure.
Make sure the pictures are right. Perfect. All right. Here we go.
All right.
Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at IHateCritics.net, Everyone's a Critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is Critics Pod. Subscribe to the show at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. If you do give us a 5-star review and write a review, we'll read it on the air, specifically from Apple Podcasts. It does help us out a little bit. Also, let us know you did it via our social media platforms so we remember to read it. Patreon.com/CriticsPod is the best way to help support the podcast. We're live on YouTube, usually Monday nights, sometimes Tuesday nights, on occasion, rare occasion Wednesday nights, like tonight. But if you go to our social media platforms, you'll see we'll post when we go live. And then finally, TeePublic. If you head over to IHateCritics.net, click on the TeePublic link, you can get some of our merch or search Critic Pod at teepublic.com. Before we get into the bulk of the episode, Sean, we went and saw Clerks 3 with Kevin Smith in Milwaukee this week.
Yeah, it was a great trip, wasn't it?
I forgot to hit record. Glad I caught it now.
Yeah, it's good that you did that now.
All right, let's take 2 here.
All right.
Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zarrell. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at IHateCritics.net, Everyone's a Critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is Critics Pod. You know where to listen to us. You know how to subscribe to us. If you leave a review at Apple Podcasts, we will read it on the air. Let us know via our social media platforms. Patreon.com/CriticsPod. The best way to support the podcast. And then our TeePublic link is at IHateCritics.net. If you click on the TeePublic link, you can get some of our merch, or just go to teepublic.com and search Critics Pod. A lot quicker than the first time I did this. For those of you listening at home, I forgot to hit record, so we had to start over. But all I did was the intro when I caught it, so we're good. Sean, we went to Milwaukee to see Clerks 3 with Kevin Smith. How did that go?
It was great. I mean, we both went. You arranged this, which I can't say enough good things about. Thank you very much. And yeah, it was awesome to get the chance to see Clerks 3 with an audience for the first time. I've seen it 4 times, and this is the first time I've actually gotten to see it with an actual audience and feeling those waves of emotion. Kevin Smith was actually talking about that before the show, how he sits backstage now instead of behind the audience because he likes to feel the waves of energy coming forward from the audience. And indeed, that is a real feeling. You can definitely sense that when you're watching it. Those waves of laughter and emotion that come from that movie. It is such an incredibly emotional film, and all that happens in it. For those who haven't seen it, I still want you to see it, so I don't want to say anything yet. But it was amazing, and Kevin Smith afterwards doing the Q&A talked about what Clerks 3 might have been. Which is not a story I'd heard before. Had you ever heard that story before?
I did not hear it in that great of detail. It was way more than I just knew. It was more negative, and he was definitely pissed off when he wrote it. Even saying that, you would never guess where he was going to go with it.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got the movie we got. I'm sure he would have found a way to make that entertaining, but I don't think you get a top Clerks 3 in terms of what it was. It definitely was more personal to him than even Clerks 2. I think he even mentions that on stage when we were doing the Q&A. Since he quit doing Clerks, or since he stopped being a clerk, his life has been in Hollywood. So he doesn't have that many experiences. And a lot of times he was just making stuff up and doing a great job of it. But, you look at Chasing Amy, where he definitely had stuff there that came from real life. Dogma came from real life. And even like Jersey Girl. But here it's, again, from real life. And he hasn't done that in a long time. And it was really cool to see it with an audience. And with that audience, I normally hate people screaming and cheering at the screen. But the reason I hate it is because the director is not there, or the actors aren't there. The director was here.
Yeah.
And it was magical. I mean, it was just, you could feel every emotion from the entire crowd. We had pretty, kind of in the middle seats, and you could just feel the energy passing by us to get to the screen. It was a very cool experience. It made me love the movie that much more. And then to just see how down to earth Kevin Smith actually is. We stuck around for the meet and greet. He came by, looked us in the eye, made conversation with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I don't know, it was really something else. I love Kevin Smith that much more because of how cool this whole event was.
It's interesting. I'm a genuinely, when it comes to physicality, I'm a pretty awkward guy, but the hug Kevin Smith gave, it was just the most natural thing, and I'd never experienced that before. That was so natural and so comfortable. It was what a great guy.
Yeah, I've hugged 3 celebrities in my life, and they're all like my favorites of what they do. It was just kind of cool to, and he I don't know, he just instantly took any level of uncomfortability, because neither one of us are that comfortable in these scenarios. And he immediately just, I don't know if he's sensitive, if he did it for everybody, but regardless, he just cleared the air. I don't smile well in photos, and instantly he says something funny and I start busting out laughing, and I can't control it. I'm trying to look serious and I can't help but laugh because it was just funny. I don't know. I'm just really impressed with the whole thing, and he gives a great meet and greet. I highly recommend. It's not overly expensive. It's worth, if you have the extra money to do it. I definitely say it's worth it, especially if you're a Kevin Smith fan. It really was a fun night. It was, I don't know. I did not get tired on the way home. Even when I dropped you off, I still another hour and I was still flying high. And that was a cool feel. I haven't been able to stay awake like that, till 3 a.m. in a long, long time. Thank God for daylight savings time.
It was so much fun, and he's just such a great guy. Just such an amazingly good guy, and that's definitely an experience I would recommend anyone have, is seeing Kevin Smith live. His Q&A is just incredible, and his detailed answers to everybody is just incredible. I cringed a lot during the question and answer, because people tend not to know just how to ask a simple question.
Well, I get embarrassed for people.
Yeah.
And again, he does a great job of making them feel comfortable, letting them get their point across, even when they're rambling a little bit. He gets them through it. And it's, I don't know, it's just way better than, he could sit and heckle all of them if he really wanted to. And I think he picks and chooses when the time is right. He can tell who can handle it and who can't. But the whole thing is, I mean, what, we get 5 questions, maybe 6. It wasn't a lot. 2 hours worth of questions.
And that Clerks 3 description he took us through the entirety of what Clerks 3 would have been maybe 10 years ago before his heart attack. And it was detailed, and it was like watching the movie.
Right. It was, I want to say he must have been in the Red State of mind when he wrote this one, or not that far away from Red State, because it was pretty dark, some of the things that happened in it.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, lots of insight. He's incredibly insightful and genuine.
genuine is the perfect word. He's aware of his audience without being egotistical. I mean, he generally appreciates everything about his audience, and he made Clerks 3 for us. I mean, there's fat on it that we all love. It doesn't take away from the movie. I recommend being a Kevin Smith fan. I can't say it enough.
And he liked your shirt.
Oh yeah, I had an Everyone's a Critic shirt on, and he walked by and he just kind of go like kind of one of those laughs, and I'm just that's funny. And then he next, and then he walked to Sean and talked to Sean a little bit, and he kept moving on. But it was really cool. That was definitely a highlight for me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get on to the episode. As much as we could have just taken a recorder and talked all the way home. It would have been more for us, though. I don't know if the audience would have cared. Anyway, let's start with the episode. This week's episode with Weird, the Al Yankovic story.
Yeah, Weird is a weird sort of biopic of Weird Al Yankovic. It's in the vein of UHF, where the idea here is that everything's very broad and outsized and quite funny. Daniel Radcliffe plays Weird Al Yankovic, going through the various inspirations for his unusual songs, taking an unusual tact that instead of these songs being parodies, they're all real Weird Al songs, and he's actually the one who created all of them. It's very funny in that way. There's a lot of really great and funny scenes in this movie. There's a standout scene at a pool party where Weird Al is challenged to create a parody song on the spot of a Queen song, and that's where he comes up with Another One Rides the Bus, and it's very, very funny. It's kind of in the vein of a West Side Story showdown, which I really loved. Jack Black has a great cameo in that scene as Wolfman Jack, of all people. Rainn Wilson's in there as Dr. Demento. Just so many amazing cameos and some aspects of Weird Al's life. Weird Al himself is in the movie as an executive who doesn't believe in what Weird Al does. It gets very weird. It gets very out there. It goes to very unusual places. Weird Al becomes a mercenary at one point who murders Pablo Escobar. Who is then replaced by Madonna as the world's biggest drug dealer. That's Evan Rachel Wood in a very unusual performance. Weird Al Yankovic actually died in 1986 at the Grammy Awards after he was named the greatest artist of all time, which is, again, an ending I didn't expect.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I'm not an overly big Weird Al fan. I don't mind the guy. I think he's entertaining whenever he's on. There are people that I've had multiple people in my life so they prefer the Weird Al songs to the originals, and
It's
I
something
automatically
I've never heard.
And I've heard it several times, and it drives me nuts every time. It's just kind of turned me off. But I love watching him in interviews. I think he's funny. He definitely is self-deprecating. Whenever I don't know. It is on Roku. I didn't see it, but it's if you have Roku, it's probably
one of my things that always bugs me about biopics is how they have to literally depict how somebody, we've got to literally depict how somebody picked their, the famous hat that they wear everywhere, some kind of dumb shit. Everything's got to have a fucking origin story. And this movie's got the best send up of that, where Al is he's just making a bologna sandwich, and that's how he comes up with My Bologna. Even though My Sharona is playing at the time, it's the bologna that's the real inspiration. It's everything has to have that visual, reference to something that creates it. It has to have an origin story, and it always annoys me when it comes to true life stories. And this is a really perfect send up of that idea that everything has to have some inspiration in that way, or an origin story of that sort.
Awesome. Anything else on Weird Al that you would talk about?
Watch it. It's terrific. Daniel Radcliffe is fantastic. think they missed out on probably a pretty good box office run if they'd have put this in theaters.
Yeah, that does shock me that they didn't try that because he is a pretty big name, but I don't know. The Banshee of Inisherin.
Mm-hmm. The Banshees of Inisherin, directed by Martin McDonagh, the director of In Bruges and Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, tells the story of two friends in Ireland in the 1920s. They're no longer friends. One day, Colin Farrell's character just shows up at his friend's house, Brendan Gleeson, and Brendan Gleeson won't answer the door, won't leave. Later on, Colin Farrell goes to the bar and he's waiting for him and he doesn't show. And then when he finally does show, he refuses to talk to him and says that Brendan Gleeson basically says we're not friends anymore. And Colin Farrell's just sort of shocked. He's just this sweet-natured, kind of dim-witted guy. He's a farmer. He doesn't have much of a life outside of the pub. He's just a guy who lives in the moment and enjoys whatever life brings him. Brendan Gleeson, on the other hand, something has set him off in his life where he very much wants to have a legacy and look to the future and be remembered for something. So he wants to finish writing a song, which actually comes to be called The Banshees of Inisherin. And he wants to have a lasting legacy in the arts. And it's really about these two conflicting mindsets at the heart of the film that separates these two friends, and the kind of the willfulness of Brendan Gleeson's character versus the lost soul quality of Colin Farrell's character. It's a wonderful dichotomy, and it really plays out extraordinarily well. Martin McDonagh knows how to develop a very unusual story of male friendship. This is not the kind of narrative that we're used to. It's a very unusual story. It's kind of an almost comic premise, if you will, of just a friend deciding he's no longer another guy's friend, and it almost seems kind of childish in a way, but it has some very deep emotional roots to it. And as they go along, Colin Farrell, you feel so much for Colin Farrell's character. He's just such an innocent, like he didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing that he did other than he's a little bit boring. He doesn't have much of a life beyond his farming. So that's pretty much all he talks about. And you kind of understand why Brendan Gleeson would go, I need this guy to go away. He's just talking about his goat all the time. I just don't have time to hear about goats. I've got a legacy to build. And so Brendan Gleeson's character is definitely a jerk in that way, but at the same time, you don't necessarily blame him, because if you heard Colin Farrell's character talking about goat crap for too long, you probably get annoyed too. This is a really terrific movie. I do hope everyone will see it. I think Colin Farrell absolutely deserves an Oscar nomination. He makes you cry over a mini pony in the movie. Like, he legitimately invests it with so much emotion that you kind of can't help yourself when something happens later on. And especially the way it happens is so shocking that I don't want to go too much. I won't go into spoilers, but man, the way Martin McDonagh develops the story and develops how Brendan Gleeson goes about trying to get this guy away from him is really something. Carrie Condon is also in the movie as Colin Farrell's sister. She's very loving and protective, but she's got her own life, and she's thinking about leaving this island that they're on. And that's the thing, they're on an island off the coast of Ireland that is not very large. So there's like one pub and there's really not a lot of other people around. So for you to decide that your one friend is no longer your friend anymore is a pretty big deal. It's the thing that pretty much everybody on the island is going to talk about. And it leaves sort of, it leaves a lasting mark on both men.
That's awesome. I can't wait till this is available to stream. It sounds fantastic.
It really is. It's such a, it is a comic, but also very dark at times. And it goes to places that you just don't expect. And, there's no typical beats, no romance at all. Just these two guys in this conflict.
Awesome. What about Armageddon Time?
Armageddon Time, it comes from director James Gray, and it stars Anne Hathaway along with a newcomer by the name of Banks Rapetta, who plays a young boy, a young version essentially of James Gray. growing up in New York in 1980. He's attending public school, and he makes friends with a kid played by Jalen Webb, a black kid in his class who is the constantly undermined and attacked by everyone, whether it's fellow students or by even the teacher of their class, who continuously blames this black kid for everything that happens. So Banks Rapetta's character becomes his friend, and they develop a nice friendship until one day they get caught smoking weed in the bathroom, and Banks Rapetta's character gets pulled out of public school and put into a private school, and has to determine whether or not he can remain friends with his former friend from his old school. At the new school, he's in a very different environment amongst very, very rich people, including, for reasons that the movie doesn't really have much of an explanation of, the Trump children are there. The sons of Donald Trump are at this school, and we see them saying horrible things about Black people and using the N-word, and really kind of drawing themselves out as sort of villains in this story, even though they're not necessarily big characters. The other big character in the movie is Anthony Hopkins as the grandfather of Banks Rapetta's character. They're very close together. He's rather woke for a 1980 character, for a character set in the year 1980, but nevertheless, he tries to get Banks Rapetta to remain friends with, not lose his roots, and reminds him of the struggles that his family has been through, as Anthony Hopkins' character is a survivor of the Holocaust, and they are a Jewish family that came to America and changed their names and kind of hid out in public who they are, but they still celebrate Jewish traditions. Anne Hathaway is pretty terrific as the mother character. Jeremy Strong plays the father character, and they both deliver really strong performances, but I'm just not sure what it is that James Gray is going for in the end. What is it that he's trying to say in the end? The young man, Jalen Webb, is a nice actor, but his performance is very functionary to this white character. And he doesn't really develop any dimension of his own. And that's really a big problem. If you're going to have this character who is so essential to this plot, he should be more than just merely functional. And he seems to function as this almost magical character on hand to teach a lesson to this young white character. And that's really just a bad approach, in my opinion. And this movie kind of left a bad taste in my mouth in that way. A lot of people really do like it. A lot of people have found something in it that they truly do appreciate. And I think James Gray is an amazing director. But I really, if he was looking to, I guess he's looking to kind of take a couple shots at Trump, and they do land a little bit in terms of taking shots at the very, very rich and how completely out of touch they are. But it doesn't really have anything to do with the main story. They're just punches thrown that maybe have something behind them, but don't have anything, again, to add to the story of these two young men, Jalen Webb and Banks Rapetta.
Yeah, it sounds. I didn't watch it, but I talked with you extensively about it. That just sounds distracting. When a movie does something like that, where it just goes out of its way to take a shot at something. There's better ways to do it, and sometimes Hollywood goes a little overboard with their agenda, and which actually sets any agenda back a little bit when they do that. And it sounds like maybe this movie might have done that a little bit.
It's definitely distracting is a good way to put it. Jessica Chastain shows up in a cameo as I'm not sure if she was meant to be Donald Trump's mother or his stepmother. I assume stepmother. She doesn't look very old here, but maybe that's his mother. I'm not sure, but she was a very powerful lawyer at the time, and she gives a very big speech about how this group of white kids at this private school, she doesn't say that, but it's very well implied who she's talking about, are the future leaders of America, and that they need to step in and be leaders and prepare themselves to be leaders in the future. And it is, it's quite disturbing just how much they talk about the privilege that they have, and making use of that privilege to further themselves and further selfish aims, as opposed to actually doing anything to help others. It's simply not something that they're preparing these children for at this particular school. And that message is certainly I guess it runs parallel to the message of the other story, of the main story of the movie. But again, they don't really come together ever, at least not in my opinion. They don't come together very well.
See, a great movie would have it in the background
Mhm.
where you kind of can see it happening, but it's not in your face, and then it's up to you to kind of find it versus having parallel stories run that don't come together. If it was just a background thing that was happening at the same time,
Mhm.
even if you didn't hardly see it, you could sometimes that energy will carry over into the movie, and then that could be a pretty amazing thing. This just seems a little bit over the top with terms of him trying to get his message across.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. There's nothing wrong with the way it's made. Like, it's a great looking movie. Anthony Hopkins is tremendous in his performance, as is Anne Hathaway and Jeremy Strong. But yeah, I just don't think the whole comes together in the end.
Yeah. Revenge movie with Mel Gibson on the line.
On the line is a movie set in the world of shock jock radio, which is, something that everybody talks about these days. It's a real topic that everybody is still top of mind about. Apparently, this movie was written back in the 90s and this now set today, even though, again, this is pretty much irrelevant. Mel Gibson plays a late night radio host in Los Angeles who arrives to work, and he's taking calls and he's shocking everybody with his shock. And he's shocking everybody with his 4-letter words that you can't say on the radio still, even though you're kind of allowed to say those things now. Most radio people don't do that, and wouldn't do that for fear of losing their job. But nevertheless, he's a shock jock. He gets a call from a guy who tells him basically that, hey, I've taken your wife and son hostage, and I'm going to need you to kill yourself, or I'm going to kill them. He leads to a scene where he gets Mel Gibson's character up to the roof and is having him essentially jump from the top. Gibson fakes him out, but he gets caught, and we end up finding that the call is coming from inside the radio station. Oh, there's these obvious, like, lame red herring characters. Mel Gibson is just completely, he's fine. He's doing his Mel Gibson thing. He's very intense. There's a scene in this movie though that is just like, if you're Mel Gibson, why do you put this scene in a movie when you already know how much people feel about you and how much, your reputation is? Why he puts a scene in a movie where he arrives at work and he walks up to a security guard who happens to be Indian, and he has a lengthy name, and it's a name that is not easy to pronounce. And so Gibson just dismissively goes, "Yeah, I'm just going to call you Bob." And it's like, what? People already assume you're a racist. Why do you have to just lean into the racism even further? Like, it's just this big middle finger to the audience. But that's just pretty much in Mel Gibson's entire career now. It's just a big middle finger to the audience. This movie's terrible. You can't be surprised by that.
I'm not going to say anything. It's one of those where we've talked about it at length. People that I don't know. It's the nostalgia makes it hard for me to hate the guy, no matter how bad how much I should. Definitely disappointed, but it's hard for me to see him doing shit like this, like he has been for several years now.
Mm-hmm.
But what's not hard for me is this movie Tar.
Tar stars Cate Blanchett as Lydia Tarr, a superstar in the world of classical music. We meet her as she's being interviewed by the New Yorker on stage in front of an adoring audience, talking about her soon-to-be triumph as she's about to conduct Mahler's Fifth Symphony, which would make her one of the few people who have ever recorded all of Mahler's work. From there, we progress through her life as she's preparing for this big performance. She's also got some things bubbling up in the background, specifically a conflict with a former mentee, somebody she was a mentor to, whom is asking why Tar has cut her out of her life. There's a lot to that. There's also something that bubbles up early on where she's returned to cover a class at a famed music school, and she has a confrontation with a Gen Z guy or Gen Z person who and essentially doesn't show enough respect in her mind for the classic creators, and they have a conflict that gets caught on video. That'll come back and play in later. Meanwhile, there's also a new member of her of the Berlin Philharmonic, where she's the conductor. This new bass player who she develops a relationship to and seems to want to have a relationship with. Where that goes is very unexpected and very interesting and very revealing about this character. And that's part of what Todd Field does so brilliantly, is slowly unfolding and unpacking this character and allowing Cate Blanchett the room to unpack this character without ever making any obvious statements about her. There's no big info dumps. There's no big dialogue scenes where you just unpack every problem that she has and why she is a problematic person. It's all just very deftly layered in various different ways, and I really adore that approach to this film, is just slowly revealing this character. And where it goes from there is just a lot of very unexpected stuff. I love the ending of this movie. And one of the things that the ending of this movie leaves you with is the idea of where you think Lydia Tarr goes from where she ends up. Do you feel that this person is going to continue to be problematic, or do you feel like they are chastened by what happened to them and have to learn a lesson but still love what they do? It's open-ended in a way that didn't bother me. And I really loved that. But I really loved everything about this movie. I think Cate Blanchett cuts an incredibly compelling character. This is one of the best, if not the best, performance of her career. And that's saying a lot because she's won 2 Oscars for Blue Jasmine and for Elizabeth. And she's just awesome. She's just awesome in everything she does, and she's awesome here.
Oh yeah, I agree with you on that. I think, like, sometimes she has a little Daniel Day-Lewis in her, and it kind of turns me off. But here was like perfect. It was like the perfect. It wasn't over the top, and it's in a distracting way. And there's been times when she's been over the top and won Oscars, so that's just not my cup of tea. But here it's perfect. And Todd Field, after I'd never seen one of his movies, as far as I know, until this week. And that guy writes or directs problematic people better than anybody else. He does such a good job of making them people and not just a terrible person. It's, speaking of Daniel Day-Lewis, I think who's that director I half hate, half love? Magnolia and all those. P.T. Anderson. He did one where was it some fashion industry one where Daniel Day-Lewis, which the guy was just he was just a hateful, horrible person, and it wasn't written well. I don't know, it just bugged me. It wasn't fun to watch. It was just nothing to it. This is interesting, way more interesting the way he unpacks this and what happens to her and how she handles it is just. I mean, this is a 2-hour, 40-minute movie, and the whole time it flies by, and I'm just watching it come together. And you see the humanity in a problematic person, and I know that can turn people off, but the way Todd Field does it, I don't think is a turnoff. I think it's really effective, and I really like this movie a lot. It is, I mean, I don't want to overstate it because it's been a fantastic year. Mm-hmm. But it is a phenomenal movie with a fantastic ending.
Indeed, yeah, the ending is something special, and that's the thing, is that his approach to being non-judgmental is very important here, because it's up to you to decide how you feel about it, just as it would be up to you to decide how you feel about any supposedly canceled person or whatever terminology you want to use. It's entirely up to you how you feel about that. Should there be a path to redemption for someone? Should there be a way for them to return to what they do after they've done something perhaps objectionable? But how objectionable was what they did, and what is the level of? It's not like she committed a crime. But she did do awful things. There's also a little bit of unfairness. So it's very fair to the character and to the story, but it doesn't come down on either side. It is entirely on you to decide how you feel about this, and that is a tightrope walk that not many directors can pull off. Most of the time, I think I'd be very upset with a director who refuses to make a decision in the end. But I was fascinated by the choices that Todd Field made here. On top of which, he has this tricky thing where he's put a lesbian character, a female character in this situation, as opposed to what we would assume someone would put in this situation, which would be a male character, and that actually serves the purpose of removing the immediate judgment that you might have of the guilt or innocence. If this were a male character, I think everyone would go immediately, this person is even not merely problematic, they're a problem. They're like a borderline criminal. They get compared to every other guy who's ever been accused of something bad, and it immediately sets you on a path towards making up your mind ahead of time. Making this a not just a female character, but a lesbian character is definitely a dicey situation. It puts you in another situation where you're kind of wondering if you're demonizing, sort of creating a female predator, female lesbian predator, which of course is a trope from the 80s that is really awful. But he sidesteps that so brilliantly, and all the minefield that you might think is in this, he manages to get around by telling a very good, very fair story.
Yeah, and like Wolf of Wall Street, this movie I did not like. Everything was executed fine. Hated the character and couldn't get into the movie. This all the negativity with her, like he's not making excuses for her. He's just showing you how the decisions come about, and it's very realistic. And not that I want to watch every canceled person's life story, but it does put some of that stuff in perspective, that not all people, nobody is 100% bad or 100% good. It doesn't mean I don't like people, but everybody has a little bit of both. Sometimes you make decisions that are unforgivable, but here, there's definitely, it's almost, almost like addiction level things that go on in their life. And again, not that they're making excuses for it, it's played out in a very, very realistic, very human way, and I just found the whole thing fascinating.
Well, and considering the times, it's this movie feels even more important because of the questions it's asking. Because again, the types of people we're talking about here, whether you didn't want to talk about James Franco or even Mel Gibson, who we just talked about, or Matt Lauer, these people are still alive. We still have to confront them in some ways. They still, even as much as some of them have receded into the background, like Matt Lauer specifically, is fascinating. But they're still there, and we still have to kind of, as a culture, decide how we feel about it, and they have to figure out their own path forward. Obviously, Mel Gibson has found a perfectly fine path forward for himself. Louis C.K. is still very much working, and even according to the Grammys, still somehow relevant. But it's again, how do we deal with those things, and asking that question of what does someone do in this situation? What is the path forward? And this ending is just so smart in how it leaves you with that question and thrusts that question upon you. In a way that is gentle, it's prodding, it's slightly comic, a little bit dark, just absolutely goddamn brilliant.
It's almost like Mel Gibson's real life story in the way that with the movies he's making now might as well be the same type of ending that he had. I don't know. I don't want to say everybody should go see it, but I think if you're a fan of movies and especially acting, this is a must see. And I highly recommend adding Todd Field into your film vocabulary, because it was a fun week for me when it came to, fun's not the right word. These are not fun movies, but it was a cool discovery.
Yeah.
I had heard of our classic before, I just never watched it, and just all around impressed with Todd Field, and definitely will be checking out his work going forward and probably going backwards as well. Anything else on Tar before we move on to the classic?
Not really. I think if you're somebody who wants to have an important conversation about modern culture, and this is arguably the most relevant movie to that whole cancel culture conversation. it is incredibly relevant and important in that way, and it absolutely deserves to be seen. On top of just being an extraordinarily well accomplished film.
100%. A classic is Little Children, again by Todd Field.
Little Children stars Kate Winslet as a dissatisfied mom in the suburbs. Patrick Wilson is a dissatisfied husband in the suburbs, and they come together and develop a sort of romance that is an affair. They've each got other partners, husbands and wives, but they're drawn together by kind of just circumstances and also just this desire to do something other than what they do every day. The kind of suburban boredom that we've seen in movies in the past, but not as well examined as it is here. There's this, one of the things that this movie does so well is this remarkably witty, smart, ingenious voiceover, which gives the film the feel of a novel in some ways. Where the narrator, this omniscient narrator who knows everything, is judging these people, but also just explaining them in just such a very unique way and taking you inside their mindset. And I'm usually not a big fan of voiceover, but this is one of the best voiceovers in a movie that I've ever seen. The characters that he draws here are so unique and fascinating, and they of course are fed upon by these supporting players, where there's Noah Emmerich and there's Jackie Earle Haley. Jackie Earle Haley plays a guy who's kind of the plot roadblock. He kind of you keep running into him throughout, and his story plays out in a fashion that is entirely unexpected and incredibly original. He's a man who's a sex offender who moves into this neighborhood. Everybody knows he's there. Everybody's fully aware of who he is and what he's accused to have done. And Noah Emmerich plays a guy who makes sure everybody knows about that. He sets about trying to really expose and destroy this guy's life. And where that goes to between those two characters and that subplot is absolutely extraordinary, and one of the most thoughtful and unique subplots I've seen in a movie in the last 20 years. And especially the way that Noah Emmerich plays it out he's one of the MVPs of character actors. He was just in The Good Nurse, and he's so amazing in that film. And here he's just so desperate and sweaty and unnerving. He's the guy who is very pushy, and he's got a lot of problems, but a good heart in many ways. And that Noah Emmerich pulls all that together is so brilliant. Then you've got Patrick Wilson, who his type of himbo vacancy always is very interesting to me. The way a director uses that sort of vacant behind the eyes quality that he has. Todd Field, I think, uses it better than any other director has ever used it. He is this figure of fantasy, but also this very much of a man-child, very ill-formed human being who clinging to ideas of his youth, of being a high school sex god, of being a guy who wanted to ride, wants to be accepted by kids who are riding skateboards. He's also playing football again. Where he can be the big man on campus again. He's got this woman, Cate Blanchett, who worships him like a god, and just desperate to be with him. And it all feeds into his ego, which seems to be his main sort of characteristic that he has. Here's a guy who has Jennifer Connelly at home, and he's sleeping with Kate Winslet. that is a difficult thing to parse, but Todd Field does an amazing job of explaining how that comes about. Kate Winslet has just never been more amazing in any movie. This is my favorite Kate Winslet performance. She's so sad and so desperate for anything in her life that isn't her day-to-day life with her husband. She's one of those rare characters who's allowed to be sort of ambivalent about her very young child, and yet coming around on that story and understanding who she is as both a woman and a mother is a terrific journey that Kate Winslet takes us on without ever having to comment on it. There's like the voiceover that I mentioned earlier is so wonderful because it allows for the movie to not suffer through all these, again, info dumps that so many other movies do. nobody does any unpacking of like big long dialogue things explaining who they are. And that's what the narrator does. And he does it so deftly that you're not left experiencing the movie through info dumps.
Yeah, it is such a unique movie. It's almost like the Wonder Years with problematic characters. I mean, but I'll get the actor's name wrong that you mentioned. Between the child pedophile and the one the character actor,
Noah Emmerich.
Noah Emmerich, two horribly problematic characters that are just written so well again. And it's, I mean, all the characters in the movie are problematic in their own ways at different levels of it. And again, just fascinating, great acting from everybody. I mean, it's probably my favorite Patrick Wilson performance. Not that that matters for anything, because Kate Winslet's always great. Jennifer Connelly is fantastic in it too. It's important in the role she's in. She's, an A-list name and kind of a smaller role that really matters. And maybe she wasn't an A-list at the time. I think she might have been, though.
I think
she
so.
was definitely a pretty big actress when this came out. Just all around, again, another 2-hour and 40-minute movie or something like that, maybe 2:30. And it's just interesting, just well done. I don't know, it makes your head go in places that it doesn't naturally go.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really impressed with Todd Field as the director. And I'm happy to have had this experience with these two movies this week.
I'm happy for you that you still have In the Bedroom to go with Sissy Spacek and Tom Wilkinson. I think that's awesome that you still have that one. That was his first one, and it's the equal to both of these as well.
Yeah, just absolutely. Again, not must sees for everybody because most people don't have the patience for it or even the interest. But if you love movies and performance and just well written characters, I don't know. And again, it's a recency bias. I don't know anybody who writes a problematic character, a realistic problematic character, or directs him as well as Todd Field does. I mean, it really is something that I haven't really seen. Obviously, if you're Travis Bickles and whatever, but that's different. This is like real life, and I don't know, it's just impressive all around.
The wealth of empathy he has for extraordinarily flawed people is pretty special. It's in a world of black and white, Todd Field embraces all of the gray and forces you to confront it. He forces you to confront Jackie Earle Haley's character, who is a sex offender, as a person, and you have to see his life as it is, and the compulsions that he lives with, and his mental illness, his day-to-day life with his very protective, very loving mother. You're forced to be in his space and deal with him. Whereas, in regular life, we all kind of push those people aside and try, out of sight, out of mind, try not to think about it, that they have daily lives, that they still have to go to work, that they still have to, try and find a place in the world, even as they have this compulsion, this evil compulsion that they have. He's a character who is not apologetic, but he's also incredibly damaged and broken mentally. And the way that Noah Emmerich's character sort of takes all of his problems and focuses them on this sort of superhero idea of himself to protecting the community from this guy who may or may not be an actual problem. It puts a focus on both of them that is so unique and fascinating and caring. He cares about these characters, he invests in these characters, and he forces you to confront these characters that you don't want to confront.
This movie does right everything Crash did wrong. This is an ensemble movie with multiple storylines going on that intertwine, and just impressive is the only word I can think of. It really is just great.
And the title too is spectacular. It's a literal title, obviously, because there's little children in the movie, but it's also because everybody in the movie is a child, seemingly satisfying their very base needs. And that's every character in the movie is going for the very basic thing. And it's that reminder that so few movies are capable of, that they're really, as much as there are adults in the world, there really is nobody who knows anything. And that's the part of growing up that you have to slowly realize, is that no one knows anything. As much as there are people who might be in charge of things, the people who are in charge of things are the same people you grew up with and went to grade school with, who picked their nose and wiped it on their shirt. And now those people have to be in charge of businesses and have their own children, and they still don't know anything.
It's 100% true. You know, you grow up and your parents are always like, someday you'll understand. And what you learn and you understand is that we're all idiots, including your parents. They're not on the pedestal we put them on. It's, I don't know, just
everybody just lives for those little moments where they can please themselves, and that's what the characters of Kate Winslet and Patrick Wilson are doing. Are just, they're satisfying their basest desire. They want sex, and they're going to have sex, and they're going to figure out ways to continue to have sex because it's fun, and it's better than anything else they could be doing. And they feel like, again, they feel like kids again. They're middle-aged people who get to feel like children again. That's everything that Patrick Wilson's character does, is about feeling young again. It's he doesn't want to become a lawyer, so he keeps avoiding taking his bar exam because that means doing a grown-up thing, and he doesn't want to do that. He wants to play football and ride skateboards and have sex with with some girl that worships him. And she just wants to escape from being a mom and having the responsibilities of being a mom. And they just provide such a perfect port in a storm to each other, which is perfect because they have sex for the first time in a storm.
that scene where she walks in on her husband on the internet. Amazing.
Man. What a scene.
Yeah. Like, how do you do that scene and not be in the Adam Sandler movie is beyond me. But he did it. I mean, it was real. It was awkward. It was uncomfortable. It wasn't funny. It's funny now that we're talking about it, but in the moment, in context, it's not funny.
No, he really gets to the creepy side of it. Even though it's not necessarily, it's not necessarily creepy. Everybody satisfies themselves in their own way, but it is creepy at the same time when you have to look at it.
Right. Nobody really gets to be watched when they do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, that's a interesting thing as an actor. I'm sure it was written on the page. It wasn't something he decided, well, this is what I do. It was.
Yeah, that's that capturing that of the moment feeling of like, what do you do in this situation? Her husband character is trying to satisfy himself watching pornography on the internet, and his wife walks in, and what does she do? And it feels so immediate and so of the moment. Kate Winslet, how she reacts, she already has a relatively low opinion of her husband, and now here he is with panties on his head jerking it, and she just like, yeah, this is not what I signed up for.
But at the same time, yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just a very real moment.
Yeah.
The whole movie is, and I can't recommend it enough. That is all of our movies this week outside of the movies from 92. Did you watch Passenger 57 or Jennifer 8?
I have a strong feeling about both those films. Jennifer 8 is one of the grossest, most disgusting movies ever made, and deeply, desperately problematic and wrong, in which Uma Thurman is a blind woman who is menaced by a serial killer, and it's extraordinarily gross and exploitative and mean-spirited and just really, really awful, and an embarrassment to everybody who was involved with it. Passenger 57, on the other hand, is a wonderful guilty pleasure of a movie. When you get to that moment where Wesley Snipes says, "Always bet on black," boom, done, I'm in. I love this movie.
And white kids have been saying that forever since that movie. It's so perfect.
It's cheesy as hell, but it is so enjoyable.
It's cheesy in all the right ways.
Yeah.
Before we get to Flick Shark, let's go what we got next week. We got Wakanda Forever, Paradise City, Ebola Homes 2.
Enola Holmes. Ebola?
That's what it said on Facebook.
It's Enola Holmes 2.
Okay, my notes said Ebola, my fault. And Falling for Christmas are coming out next week.
And the classic is Casablanca.
Perfect. 1992, Dracula and Love Potion #9 came out as well.
Approached both cousin Jeff and Zach Cove to be a part of the show next week, so we'll see.
Yes, I will not be there. I will be elsewhere, but I'm looking forward to listening to that one as a listener versus a co-host. It'll be fun. I always enjoy those. All right, let's head over to Flickchart and let's see here. I could pull up our messages just to see if you wrote Ebola Homes. I'm not that petty, just kidding. White Chicks, the Amityville Horror with Ryan Reynolds.
White Chicks is scarier, but I'll take Amityville Horror, I guess. I think it's shorter.
I just like Ryan Reynolds. Even when he's bad, I could take that for. There's some movies I don't want. Anyway, forget it. I'll go to. Wow, that sucked. Winnie the Pooh, Crocodile Dundee.
I know that one. Yeah, I don't know.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
Their First Mistake, Crocodile Dundee. You don't know Laurel Hardy?
I haven't seen that one.
101 Dalmatians, the live action kids movie in Crocodile Dundee.
Crocodile Dundee, I guess. I'm not a fan of either one.
I'm not passionate, hatred, or liking either one of those. 16 Blocks, Analyze This.
16 Blocks. I don't care for Analyze This.
Let's take this. What Hot American Summer, It Follows.
Wet Hot American Summer for me.
I agree with you. It Follows. Mainly because of the buzz was so high for it.
Mm-hmm.
The Nice Guys and Ghost World.
That is tough, man. Those are two really great movies. I'm gonna go Nice Guys.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I feel like it's like a straight white male choice. I think Ghost World's probably a better movie, but I could watch The Nice Guys all day, every day. Away We Go, Spider-Man 3.
Away We Go. I love Away We Go. I wish more people had seen that one.
What is it?
It's John Krasinski and Maya Rudolph play a married couple going on the road trying to get some advice about becoming parents for the first time. Really, really smart, really funny, really romantic, really unique.
Crazy About Her.
Never heard of it.
We haven't seen that one since 2021. The Amazing Colossal Man.
Can't say I've heard of that one either.
Hitman, The Day the Earth Stood Still.
The Day the Earth Stood Still for me. Love The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Nebraska, Machete.
Nebraska by a lot for me.
Nebraska is awesome. Safety Not Guaranteed at Eastern Promises. Wow, this is hard.
That is so hard. I just wrote about Eastern Promises for its Blu-ray release not all that long ago, and it got even better for me. But that said, I think I love Safety Not Guaranteed even more just because of how unique and strange and wonderful it is, and it's got Aubrey Plaza.
I'll never forget that viewing experience, and I love Eastern Promises a lot, but I've seen it multiple times, and I don't necessarily remember where it was when I saw it. I'll never forget, Safety Not Guaranteed. That was just for that alone. But I love Eastern Promises. Prometheus, the 1408.
This is very easy. It's 1408, which is a movie apparently I really loved back in 2007.
I liked it.
It's on the blog. The reviews on my blog, Sean at the Movies .blogspot.com. And yeah, when I didn't remember that I liked it so much, but when I read the review, I'm like reminding myself, oh man, I really like that.
Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Frankenstein.
If it were Bride of Frankenstein, I'd probably go with Bride of Frankenstein, but I'm going to go with Mr. Smith over the original Frankenstein.
Yeah. Venom, LA Confidential.
LA Confidential.
The Matrix, Resurrection, we were soldiers.
Matrix Resurrections. I feel like We Were Soldiers was just kind of dull, honestly.
I did see that one.
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I was mumbling to myself. I just hate the Matrix movies, and I did see that one. But you in. Big Trouble in Little China, E2, The Mighty Ducks.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Absolutely. Men, Psycho.
Give me a break. Come on. I'm gonna go with Men. I am. I know it's like kind of a more, I've seen it more recently, but I think I really think in 50 years people are going to be talking about Men.
I'm gonna go Psycho. I like Men a lot. There's this part of me that feels like a woman should tell this story. That's the only thing that'll hold me back on it, is all.
Mm-hmm.
Men's. It is phenomenal. I don't want to take anything away from it. It is awesome. Empire Records, Death Become Good.
Empire Records.
Maverick, Bridget Jones' Diary.
Bridget Jones' Diary.
District 9, The Bad News Bears.
Bad News Bears.
Let's talk about Jackie. I gotta quit mumbling. Sorry. Bride of Chucky, Lost in Translation.
Lost in Translation.
Are you sure? Just Cause, The Great Outdoors.
Just Cause. I find Great Outdoors to be obnoxious. I know a lot of people love it, but I'm not one of them.
I kind of like Just Cause, if I remember. I haven't watched it since '95, but I remember enjoying it then. And Great Outdoors is like Weird Al for me. It's like everybody loves it, and it's like, really, you're gonna watch that again? I don't dislike it. I just don't love it.
Like I said, I find it obnoxious.
Game Night, Mary Poppins.
It's Game Night. Game Night's awesome. That movie's fucking hilarious.
It is way better than it deserves to be. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, Speed Racer.
I love Rise of Skywalker, but it's Speed Racer for me. Speed Racer is desperately underrated.
I haven't seen it, so I'll be with you. 1917, Moonraker.
1917.
Yep. Knowing My Super Ex-Girlfriend.
They're both awful. But Knowing doesn't have Anna Faris being abused behind the scenes, so I'm going to go with that one.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. You told me about the other day. I won't go with you there. Friday the 13th, the final chapter is Sin City.
Sin City.
Frankenstein, 1931. King Kong, 76.
Frankenstein.
Yeah. Flight 93, The Santa Claus 2.
Was the Santa Claus 2 the one I really...
Yeah, you liked one of those, didn't you?
I did. I think I liked one of them. I think it was, yeah, it's the Santa Claus 2. I'm going to go with that one.
I'd rather watch it.
Yeah.
Bringing Up Baby, Phantom of the Opera, 2004.
Bringing Up Baby by a lot.
Lady Bird, Real Steel.
Lady Bird.
Lovely bird. Parasite, Shazam.
Parasite.
100%. Paranorman. What's that? Paranorman, the one.
Paranorman.
3. E2 Mama Tambien, Marley.
I like Marley and Me a lot, but it's Y Tu Mama Tambien. That's a better movie.
Masterpiece. Star Trek Insurrection, Bringing Up Baby.
Bringing Up Baby.
The Amityville Horror, 1979, Enter the Dragon.
Enter the Dragon.
Yes. Under Siege, Night of the Living Dead,
Night of the Living Dead.
100%. King Pearl, Lost Boys.
King Creole, absolutely. I love King Creole.
Who always come up? But you Justin Bieber of this time. Friday the 13th, Part 2, Ghost Rider.
Friday the 13th, Part 2.
The Angel with Dirty Faces.
I've not seen Angels with Dirty Faces. I've only seen the clip from Home Alone.
Oh yeah, that's that one. Contagion, Wolverine.
Contagion.
Spectre, Hook.
Hook.
Josh.
How angry Josh is yelling at his computer phone. How dare you?
Have you heard of Castle Freak or Pick Me Up?
I've not seen either one. I want to see Castle Freak. I've heard weird things about that movie.
Never heard of it. Day of the Dead, Double Indemnity.
Double Indemnity.
In the Line of Fire, whose life is it anyway?
I've not seen Whose Life Is It Anyway?
In the Line of Fire, the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
In the Line of Fire, yeah, it's shorter.
Which problematic director do you go with? Dave Frankenstein. What the fuck, Frankenstein?
I know, it's weird. Frankenstein.
The Outlaw, Josie Wales, A Time to Kill.
I reference A Time to Kill a lot in my mind.
I haven't seen it since '96, or I haven't watched it really since it came out. And I don't know. When I saw Outlaw Josie Wales, I wanted a different movie than I got.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm leaning A Time to Kill. However, that doesn't mean it's good. I just haven't seen it in a very long time.
Yeah, A Time to Kill.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, The Virgin Suicides.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but they're both brilliant films.
Yes. You, Me, and Dupree, City of Ember.
They're both insanely mediocre. City of Ember.
Rumble in the Bronx, Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2014, Osmosis Jones.
I'd rather punch myself in the face.
Okay. I don't have an opinion, and that's a good way to end the show. If you're okay with that.
All right.
All right. Have a good show next week.
See ya.
See ya. Bye.